He laughed at my tie before he even knew my name. That was the first time someone dared to treat me like a human instead of a wallet. And for a second, I hated him for it. But then again, maybe that was the reason I couldn't forget him. I had built everything from the ground up, me company. My empire. My untouchable reputation. I was the kind of man who made headlines when I sneezed, whose phone never stopped vibrating with deals, acquisitions, and partnerships. People looked at me and saw success. But success had a way of rotting from the inside. And it wasn't until I met a boy sketching strangers in Washington Square Park that I realized how empty I'd become. He was nothing like me. His clothes looked like they had been slept in, his hair messy, and his shoes falling apart. Yet there was this softness in his eyes, a kind of bravery in his smile that didn't need money or power to exist. When he teased me about my silk tie that probably cost more than his rent, it stung because he was right. I had forgotten what it felt like to be teased without an agenda. His name was Adrian. He drew me that day without asking. Just picked up his pencil, glanced at me once, and within minutes, there I was on his paper, except not the way I saw myself. He hadn't drawn the businessman, the CEO, the polished mask. He had captured something raw, something broken, like he had looked right through me. "You look lonely," he said, handing me the sketch. Lonely. That word had been haunting me for years. Even when I was surrounded by people. Even when I was winning. And suddenly a stranger had said it out loud. Like he had been waiting all along to name the ghost I carried. I told myself I wouldn't see him again. What use did I have for a poor artist when my life was already overflowing with distractions I didn't even want? But the truth is, I kept going back to the park. Some nights after late meetings, I would find him sitting under a lamppost, sketching strangers, shivering in the cold. Sometimes I'd buy him coffee. Sometimes I'd just watch. And each time, something inside me softened in ways I couldn't explain. One night, he asked me why I kept coming back. I couldn't answer. The truth was, I didn't know. Maybe it was because his world was the opposite of mine, messy, unpredictable, painfully beautiful. Maybe it was because every time he looked at me, I felt seen. And maybe, just maybe, it was because I was falling for him. But loving Adrian was not simple. It meant stepping out of the armor I had built around myself. It meant letting the world see me vulnerable. My board of directors would never understand. My investors would raise eyebrows. My so-called friends would turn my private life into gossip. I had lived so long in control, chained by expectations, that the idea of choosing him felt like leaping off a cliff. Adrian, on the other hand, had no illusions. He didn't ask for money or favors. Didn't want to be saved. He just wanted to be with me. And that was the most terrifying part of all. "Why do you keep hiding behind that suit?" he asked once, his hand brushing against mine, so light I almost thought I imagined it. "Because it's all I have," I answered. "No," he said softly. "It's all you let people see." That night I kissed him. Clumsy, desperate, like a man starved of air. And he kissed me back. Gentle at first, then with a heat that burned through every layer of control I had left. But reality has a cruel way of creeping in. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls. Headlines questioning my late-night whereabouts. Rumors swirling about my company's future. Panicked. Pulled away. I told him it was a mistake. The look on his face shattered me more than any financial loss ever could. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just looked at me like he had seen it all before. Like he always knew I would choose the empire over him. And then he walked away. For days, I buried myself in work. Closed deals. Signed papers. Smiled for cameras. But every time I closed my eyes, all I saw was his face when I broke him. And I realized something brutal. I wasn't scared of losing my empire. I was terrified of losing him. Because Adrian wasn't just an artist. He was the mirror I had been avoiding all my life. I told myself I could live without him. That the ache in my chest would dull with time. That work would swallow me whole and silence the memory of his voice. But nights stretched longer. My penthouse echoed with emptiness. And the city outside my window looked colder than it ever had before. The truth was simple. I missed him. Not the way you miss a passing stranger, but the way you miss a heartbeat you thought would always be there. Weeks passed. I threw myself into meetings and numbers, but no deal felt like a victory anymore. My assistant noticed the way I stared at my phone, waiting for a message that would never come. I even went back to the park, searching for him under the lamppost. But he wasn't there. His absence was a wound I couldn't ignore. One evening, after a particularly brutal board meeting, I found myself wandering the Lower East Side, past crumbling buildings and dim-lit galleries. And there he was inside a small studio, hunched over a canvas, paint smudged on his cheek. He hadn't seen me yet. His whole body moved with the brush. His eyes locked on the colors taking shape. For the first time, I saw him not just as Adrian, the boy who teased my tie or stole my breath with a kiss. I saw him as an artist, alive in his world, complete without me. And I hated myself for leaving him. I pushed the door open. The bell above chimed softly, and he froze. When he turned, his eyes met mine, and I swear I felt the ground shift. "What are you doing here?" His voice was steady, but I could hear the tremor beneath it. "I made a mistake," I said, the words tumbling out before pride could stop them. "I thought I could walk away, but I can't. Adrian, I don't." He cut in, his jaw tight. "Don't say it if it's just going to hurt me again." I crossed the room, every step a plea. "I can't stop thinking about you. About us." I was scared. Yes. Scared of what people would say. Scared of losing everything I built. But the truth is, without you, all of it means nothing. Silence. He set the brush down. His fingers stained blue and red. For a moment, I thought he would throw me out. Then he let out a shaky laugh. One that cracked something open in me. "You really think you can just walk in here and fix it with pretty words?" he asked. "No," I admitted, my voice breaking. "But I'm willing to try every day if you let me." He looked at me for the longest time, and I let him. I let him see the rawness, the fear, the man behind the mask. Finally, he whispered, "I don't need your money, or your empire. I just need you to stay." That was the moment I knew I would never let him go again. Loving him was not easy. The world did not soften because we chose each other. Rumors spread. Investors raised questions. Friends whispered behind closed doors. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care. I stopped measuring worth in numbers and started measuring it in mornings spent drinking coffee beside him. In paint-stained kisses that ruined my expensive shirts. in laughter echoing through the apartment that once felt like a museum. He challenged me in ways no one ever had. When I retreated into my work, he pulled me back into the present. When I doubted myself, he showed me the man he saw, the man in his sketches, not the one on magazine covers. One night, under the Brooklyn Bridge, he showed me a painting he had been working on. It was of us. Not polished, not perfect, but raw and real, me in my suit, him in his messy clothes, our hands almost touching. "This is us," he said. Two worlds colliding, but somehow fitting together. Kissed him then, under the glow of city lights, with the river rushing beneath us. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was falling off a cliff. I felt like I was finally landing. Months later, I brought him to a gallery opening. The room was filled with the elite, the same people who once defined my world. They looked at him with curiosity, some with disdain, but he held his head high, his hand steady in mine. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Success was never about power, or money, or control. Success was standing in a crowded room, unafraid to love who I loved. I whispered to him, "You led me here, Adrian." Quietly, without ever asking for anything. "You showed me myself." He smiled, soft and certain. "You were always there. You just needed to stop hiding." That night, I didn't just introduce him as an artist. I introduced him as the man I loved. And for the first time, the applause, the flashing cameras, the whispers, they didn't matter. All that mattered was the way he squeezed my hand, grounding me in a world I never thought I could have. Life didn't suddenly become a fairy tale. We fought. We struggled. We doubted. But we also laughed, created, and healed. And in every high and low, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I had built empires and won battles. But it was Adrian who taught me how to live. And that, far beyond wealth or power, was the greatest success of all. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.